Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2019. I'm your host, Kerry Holzman. Welcome in. And today I'm going to continue where I left off with yesterday's video. If you didn't see yesterday's video, I'll have a link to it in the video notes below this video, and a link to this video in the video notes below that video. But to summarize, yesterday, customer had sent me their computer that it was a brand new build, and they could not get it running, or they could get it to boot, but then Windows would never complete installing without an error message. So they changed out the motherboard, they changed out the RAM, they changed out the power supply, they tried a different solid state drive. Nothing was working, and they're frustrated. So they contacted me and asked me if I'd look at it for them. So I had them mail the parts to me, just the basic parts. I don't need their graphics card or their DVD drive. We're trying to save any damage from occurring in shipping. So if there's parts I don't need, I have the customer hold on to them. Sometimes I need the video card. It depends on what the problem is. But here, obviously, if Windows doesn't install, we're not even going to worry about the graphics card at this point. It's probably just fine. When the machine arrived, I diagnosed it just through a process of elimination, and it appears to be a bad CPU. Appears to be. So I kind of left it at that, and while I was broadcasting yesterday, I was interrupted for a delivery, which was some parts that arrived for some other builds I'm doing. And they had some of those parts included some RAM. And I thought, when I have some time, I'm going to switch his RAM out for this other RAM. I just didn't have anything good to switch it out with yesterday, but I do now. And I have the same exact processor in a computer I built for my office, and I only intended to use it for about 3 to 6 months, and I looked at the date on it, and it was September of 2018 when I built it. So I thought, you know what, it's time to blow the dust and debris out of it. It's been sitting there for a year. I can't believe a year went by that quick. I'm going to be building a computer for Mike Smith of the Mike Tech Show, and when I was talking to Mike, he insisted he wanted the best. And I kept trying to talk him down to just getting sort of the top of the middle, you know what I mean? And he's like, he was getting angry with me. He's like, no, I want the best. He says, I'm a tech. I want the system to last for years. I want more than I need. And I know it's going to cost me more. I don't care. I am a tech, and I deserve the best because I use it for a living. And I'm thinking about me and my Core i5 in my office, you know? And I'm like, he's making a very good point there. If you reach a point in your career where money is coming in and you want to continue to grow, it's important you invest in yourself. I mean, here I am, I'm investing money in cameras and microphones, but nothing in my office computer, which, you know, is doing a lot of the back end work on these videos. So, and the business end of it, right? Sending emails and talking to vendors, and there's a big reliance on that computer. When you guys submit your contributions through PayPal, I always send a thank you email back to you if you have a good email address with PayPal. You guys got to check your PayPal email addresses, man. About 1 out of every 50 contributions, the email address used isn't valid, and so when I say thank you, it comes back to me as undeliverable. I feel bad about that. Anyway, I have decided Mike is right, and my streaming computer should be the best of the best, and my office computer should be the best of the best. And I went ahead and I ordered a 9900KS processor. This is a limited edition processor from Intel. Intel likes to do this. They like to come out with these limited edition processors, which end up creating a lot of value. If you want to make an investment, there's always risk in investment, but if you can find one of these 9900KS, there's a KS and a KF. I'm trying to remember which one it is. The KS, I believe, is the limited edition, and the KF is just a 9900 without built-in GPU. But anyway, the one I got is it's about $680, which is marked up about $100 over retail right now, and that's the cheapest I can find it. I find it everywhere for $800, $900 right now. Intel says this is basically a 9900K processor with all the cores running at 5 gigahertz. They can all turbo to 5. And they're only making it during the holiday season. which means that it'll be available probably through January or February, and then they won't be available anymore. And so it's a limited edition, and for people that means something to, you can jack up the price. So if you buy one of these processors and keep it in the box and don't open it, say it costs you $600 or $700, let's say it's $680, you potentially could turn around and resell this for $1,000 by spring, maybe. But that being said, I intend to use it. So you know the Nuka-Cola system that I built has the Intel 8086K processor. Those are very expensive and hard to find right now because they were, once again, a limited edition processor. Does it mean anything to anybody, really? Just to the nerds who see the value in it. Most ordinary people don't care. I don't think you're going to really see a performance difference in the real world for most people between a 9900K and a 9900KS, but I guess it depends on how you use your machine. And I've been running these Intel NVMe's because they're very inexpensive. For $200, you're getting a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD that can run up to 2,000 megabytes per second. The Samsung 970 Evo Plus at 2 terabytes is over $400. I think you can get it on sale for $400, but it'll run at 3,500 megabytes per second. So the same capacity. The Samsung unit also has a longer life. The Intel unit, I think, is like 2 petabytes or something, and the Samsung unit is 3 petabytes. I can't remember. The Intel is QLC and the Samsung, I think, is SLC. Regardless, I'll do a video on this. And then there's sort of this middle ground where you can go with like AdLink S70 2 terabyte drive for about $250. That's very comparable to the Samsung drive in performance, but you don't get that great Samsung Magician software, and Intel also has some great software. So coming up with the next week or two, I'm going to test price versus performance. The Intel 660p on the low end at $200 for 2 terabytes versus the Samsung 970 Evo Plus at $400 for 2 terabytes. And then compare that to the AdLink S70 for $250. All drives are 2 terabytes. They all have the same warranty. They have different endurance ratings, and then you can decide which one's right for you. There's no right answer here. For some people, getting the capacity at 2,000 megabytes per second is plenty fast. For other people, they've got to have the best. They need the Samsung. And for others, using that S70 from AdLink, I mean, Lord only knows what kind of support they have. I don't know. Hopefully you don't need it. These SSDs have been very reliable regardless of the manufacturer. However, that will be a risk you take if you go to a smaller manufacturer like AdLink. Maybe they've got great support. Maybe they don't. Hopefully you never need to know. But now you can get the sort of the compromise between nearing the performance of the Samsung, but also nearing the price of the Intel. So I'm excited to make that video. We'll have all 3 NVMe drives out. I should probably throw an ADATA XPG in there just for the heck of it, but I don't think I'm going to have time, and all this costs money. So that's all stuff coming up that I'm really, really excited about. Now, I've been working on the system today off camera to figure out what's going on with it. So the customer basically swapped everything but the CPU. And I took the CPU out yesterday in yesterday's video and put it into another system. That one's sitting over on the counter over there. And the system wouldn't boot. So it seems like a bad CPU. So I took my i5-8400, and you'll see that in the thumbnail. You'll see the 2 actual CPUs used in this video. And those of you who have a sharp eye will notice the batch number, the last number on the bottom of the CPU. One of those matches yesterday's video. So when I ask you which one is the bad one, all you got to do is remember what I showed you in yesterday's video. But be that as it may, I've left the system as it was with the original CPU, the customer CPU in it. This is my CPU right here. And when I put my CPU in it, system still didn't boot. So I thought, uh-oh, that's odd. So I took the customer's Trident Z RAM out, and I hate this RAM. If there, generally I like G-Skill, but I hate this RAM. If you remember, I built a system for a gentleman named Franklin, and he switched the RAM out on me without checking with me, and we had clearance issues in the build because of this, because of the extra height. Now it appears there's some incompatibility between this RAM and this board. So I got the board functional, and I installed Windows 10 and all the updates, and it works, and I made sure that the Samsung firmware is up to date, and it is. I made sure the BIOS is up to date, and it is. There's nothing for me to update. So the reason why this particular issue was very difficult to diagnose is it looks like we had two problems. What's interesting is the specifications on this RAM, if I can hold it here you can see it, is DDR4 3200 CL16. You see it on the sticker there, right below the bolded characters. I'm reading that second line. And the RAM I'm using, although I think that's 16 gigs, the RAM I ordered is 32 gigs, but that's irrelevant. And the RAM I'm using, right here, let me pull this out and I'll show it to you, is basically the same specifications. (3200 megahertz), CL16. You see at the end number there it says C16. And even the numbers below, the 16, 18, 18, 36, I think match identically, right? 16, 18, 18, 38, and this is 16, 18, 18, looks like 36 instead of 38. That might be the difference. That might be what's causing it. So anyway, now I've done all this testing off camera, I can more quickly get through this to teach you guys. Thank you for the contributions. I'm going to get to all the acknowledgments for the contributions towards the end of the video so I don't get so distracted like I normally do, and this takes even longer. So everything is back the way it was, except I've replaced the customer's RAM, 16 gigs of RAM, G.Skill Trident Z. I hate G.Skill Trident Z. This has been nothing but a headache for me. I don't recommend it. You buy any G.Skill RAM you want, stay away from the Trident Z. In my opinion, I recommend you avoid it. You want good RAM, go with Corsair Vengeance. Just stay away from the RGB nonsense. If you gotta have RGB, get anything but G.Skill. That's all I'm saying. Or at the very least, check the qualified vendor list for your motherboard manufacturer. Go online to your motherboard manufacturer's website and go to the motherboard product page, and they'll have what's called a QVL, or qualified vendor list. And that will list all of the RAM they've tested with the board and verified that it works. They don't test all RAM. That would be impossible. So if the RAM you buy isn't on the list, it may or may not work. If the RAM you buy is on the list, it will work. So just keep that in mind. It depends if you're shopping for price or if you're shopping for compatibility and peace of mind. A lot of people just go for the racing to the bottom of the bucket. And I've got to talk about that for a minute. I saw an article posted at PC World called How to Build the Cheapest Computer You Can Buy with Black Friday Specials. And I thought to myself, who's this for? What's the idea here? Let me see just how far down I can scrape the bottom of the barrel before the barrel starts to leak. I understand money can be tight, but I'm telling you right now, you are better off buying a used computer with the same amount of money than buying a new computer that scrapes the bottom of the barrel. Who's ever thinking, whatever your logic is, to race to the bottom like you're getting away with something, look at me and look how low I can go. I strongly encourage you to change that attitude. You're worth more than that. If it's just a challenge for fun, just to see how cheaply you can get away with it, knock yourself out. But if this is a system you're going to use every day to talk to your friends and family on the internet and pay your bills online and do important things that are important to you, this is not a novelty. This is something you're going to rely on every single day. And every time it has a problem, you're going to stress out. Why in the world would you go as cheap as you possibly can? I understand if it's something you go, look, I only vacuum my house twice a year, so I'm not going to buy a Dyson. You know what I mean? I'll spend $50 on the cheapest vacuum cleaner I can find. I get that. But if it's something you're counting on and it's a priority to you, it's not a novelty. This is something that you're going to rely on every single day. Racing to the bottom to see how cheaply you can do it is nothing I can condone. You are just saying, you know what? I like to have problems in my life, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it too because I can make money at it, but there's nothing more frustrating to me than somebody who builds one of these $200 machines and then says, hey, Carrie, I need some help. And I'm like, you know, my labor is going to cost you as much as that computer did. It doesn't make any sense. And furthermore, you're less likely to have problems if you buy quality parts. I'm not suggesting you have to buy the best, but I am suggesting you stop buying the worst. Right? Got that off my chest. Let me show you where we're at with this. I'm going to flip over to camera 2. And I think what I'm going to do this time, I need the other mouse. I think what I'm going to do this time is I'll make this window smaller. So bear with me here for a second. There's camera 2. Okay, so this is my camera 2. And let me just bring that up. Let's put it. It's not working. Just stay with me here, guys. I'm just trying to make an adjustment to the video so we can see everything. All right, so I'll leave that up there. So now with my RAM in it, it's the only thing I've changed is my RAM, and I installed Windows 10 and did all the updates on it. Let's fire it up. I'm going to flip the switch on. So the fan starts turning. I don't know what you guys can see on that. The fan is turning, and we'll watch that upper right corner and look for some acknowledgement of something happening. If we let this run long enough, it actually cycles the power off and then comes back on, and it tends to just keep repeating that. When you're diagnosing your own computer problem, which, look, I encourage you to be self-reliant, but there gets to be a point where when you get down to the level where you don't know if you've got a CPU or a motherboard problem, it may be best to take it to a professional. It may be cheaper and faster. Because if you have to buy another CPU to test it, CPUs are often not returnable. If you buy a motherboard and try it and the motherboard doesn't work, this can get very time consuming, whether you're going back and forth to the store, dealing with returns and refunds, or having to go back to the post office and mail something back. This gets very, very time consuming and very, very expensive. So what I'm suggesting is know where to stop and take it to a professional. And a professional shouldn't just give you a vague statement like you need a new motherboard and a new CPU. It's going to be one or the other. And if they're incapable of telling you that, then they're not a real technical shop. They're just, they have the bare minimums of knowledge. They don't have any actual, what I consider to be tech knowledge to do the job properly. They should be able to specify exactly what the problem is. And failure to do so means they're just guessing, right? So, or their knowledge is too limited, or they don't have enough spare parts laying around their shop to properly test. Whatever it is, it's inadequate, and in my opinion, they shouldn't be in business. So in this particular case, in this example, I've got the spare parts and I'm able to do this, so the customer didn't have to buy more RAM and buy CPU. And the customer already changed out the motherboard and already changed out the RAM and already changed out the SSD. Forget the money involved in that. Think of the time. And their frustration is to a level where they finally gave in and called me. And I'm just suggesting to you, maybe call that shot a little earlier, right? Once you're down to the board and CPU, once you've eliminated everything else, and all you're left with is the board and CPU, I mean, if you want to gamble and order a board, it's cheaper and you can return it. If the problem still happens, it's probably a CPU. But you're going to delay your build by months if you're doing this shipping things back and forth. So that being said, You can see nothing's happening. The fan is turning. You'll see no signal is on the screen, and that means the machine is simply not initializing. You'll see I'm cutting power off at the power supply, never work on the system with the switch in the on position. Now I'm going to remove the heat sink, and we're going to pop this off again. I don't know how good you can see this. Let me see if I can close in a little bit more for you guys on this shot. Let's get in there. Where's my zoom? Whoa. Let's lock it there. All right. So I'm going to take the heat sink off here, which requires I just turn these towers. And once they're turned in the direction that's indicated, there's an arrow on these towers. Just lift up on each tower. So I lift up on all four. Then I'm going to grab here and just kind of wiggle and pull up on the heat sink, and I'm going to unplug it, and I'm going to set it right here. I'm going to take the customer's CPU out. Now, I know a lot of you think that these Intel sockets are so fragile that taking CPUs in and out of them is a problem. They're not. They're meant, I can probably change a CPU out on the same motherboard 300-400 times without any worry of damage. You just got to be careful. That's all. Just don't be ham-fisted with it. And you can change out CPUs without any concern of damaging your socket. It's not that delicate. Where it's delicate is if you're not inserting your CPU gently, or if you're not removing the CPU gently. So as long as you do it right, there's no limit to the number of times you can take CPUs in and out of this socket. This anxiety about breaking it because you've used it too much, it's not why it breaks. It didn't break because you used it too much. It broke because you were indelicate with it. So if you don't trust yourself, that's an issue with you, not an issue with the socket. Now I'm going to turn these little towers back in the opposite direction of the arrow. So when I push down on them, they'll lock back into position. And I'm going to place this right back on the CPU. And I'm just leaving the remnants of thermal compound on there. And I want those four corners to click. And then I'm going to plug the fan back into the fan header. And having been the only change I'm making, we're going to turn it back on as soon as I can put the fan direction in the right way. So here's the power switch. Let me flip the power on the power supply back on. Hit this, fan starts to turn, and then up in this corner, we should see Windows 10 load. Be patient when it's booting. Here we go. So we know for a fact that we have a bad CPU. That much is certain at this point. Now, one of the great things about the stock cooler is it makes your diagnostics so much faster than if you've got some third-party cooler. And on a Core i3 or a Core i5, this fan is dead silent. There's no reason to go to a third-party fan. So I'm glad the customer gave me the stock fan, because changing this out with a third-party fan would take far more time, and it's pointless to do that on a system that's not booting. You're worried about cooling something that won't even start. That's silliness. Okay, and as I mentioned, the Core i3 and Core i5 Intel fans are practically silent, so you're practically wasting your money anyway on a third-party fan. Use higher-end fans on higher-end processors, right? Don't put hubcaps on a lawnmower is all I'm saying. Now you can see Windows loads just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the power switch right here, and you'll see Windows shut itself down. And once this fan stops turning, here we go. LEDs went out, fan is stopped. I'll flip the switch on the back of the power supply back to the off position, and I'm going to take my RAM out. This is the Corsair Vengeance RAM I mentioned earlier. We'll take that one out, and we're going to take this one out. And now I'm going to place the customer's G-Skill Trident Z RAM back just how it was. Now, this is nothing I did off camera. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I don't think it's going to work, but this is how we know for sure. So I've got the switch back on the power supply. I'm going to hit the button here and watch up there, see if we get any video, see what happens. RAM just lit up. System looks like it's going to boot okay. This is a puzzle. When I initially put my CPU in this motherboard, it still didn't work, and it wasn't until I pulled the RAM out and swapped it that it did finally boot up. Now it seems like it's booting up. I'll tell you what could have happened. The proximity of the edge of the cooler to the edge of the RAM on this motherboard, they don't give you a lot of room. And I may have just nudged the RAM enough. I don't know if you can tell just how close that cooler comes up against that RAM module. So taking this cooler off may have pushed this sideways. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm sort of dumbfounded. I honestly didn't think that was going to work. So the good news is, it looks like there is no incompatibility with the RAM. My feeling about the G-Skill Trident Z is still the same. I still have the Trident Z that I ended up having to buy off of Franklin because it wouldn't work in his system, and it's sitting on a shelf. I'll use it in something. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that. It does have me a little concerned, but there we have it. We know now for a fact through this testing we do have a bad CPU. Now to return the CPU to Intel, here, wait a minute, let me adjust the camera back so you can see me. I still got to go a little further back. I'll fire this cameraman. Now to return the CPU to Intel, you would go to Google, type in Intel CPU warranty, and they'll take you to a website where you can enter some numbers on the top of the CPU. You enter that very bottom number, and then written in really, really tiny letters along the edge of the CPU are the last 6 digits of the serial number. And then based on that, Intel determines your warranty. It turns out, it appears you don't need an invoice. And what that does is lead you to their technical support. You don't get to tell them, give me a new CPU. They have to determine it. So they're going to ask you, what motherboard do you have? What have you tried? What are the symptoms? You know, things like that. And based on your answers, they might say, try this and try that. You say, okay, that didn't work. And they'll be like, okay, here's your RMA number, your Return Merchandise Authorization number. Here's how you need to pack it. Here's where you need to ship it to. When we receive it, we'll ship another one back to you. So that's going to be the process. I've never done this with an Intel CPU before. The last time I saw a bad Intel CPU, or even a bad CPU in general, has been more than, not since I've been in this house. I moved in this house in 2009. So it's been more than 10 years since I've seen a bad CPU. If you're diagnosing your own system and you're down to knowing it's either the motherboard or CPU, I'd say 999 times out of 1,000, it's your board. But CPUs can go bad, especially if you bought it from a questionable source, or if you're overclocking it and pushing it beyond its engineering design. Then, of course, all bets are off. But, you know, taking it out of the box and using it as it's intended, I couldn't tell you the last time I've seen a bad one. This will be one for the record books as far as my videos go, because it'll probably be a very long time before you see another bad CPU on this channel. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll have another one tomorrow. I don't think so. Based on the past, if the future is anything like the past, it's got to be another 10 years before we see another one. And you can say you were there. You saw it when it happened. All right, let me look through the chat and see what I've been missing. We'll have a little chit-chat here, and then I think we're going to wrap it up for today. Excuse me. Still tail end of that cold. Let's move that up a little bit. Some contributions have come in, so let me give some shout outs to these generous folks. Randall Hills contributed $2. He says, hey, Kerry, sup, everybody. Josh McLeod's contributed $13.99 Canadian dollars. Ramsey Elmwardi has contributed $5 and says, hello from Indianapolis. Have a Coke and a water, Kerry. And Rudiger Luffy has contributed $5. Says, hello from Virginia, Kerry. And hello to the wrenches and the chat. Tom Jackson contributed $17.77. He says, look for a Christmas gift coming to your PayPal soon. Ooh. Alan Maybrier's contributed $2, and the Gandalf has contributed $5 New Zealand dollars. He says, if you change a new CPU on a problematic motherboard, can't you damage the new CPU? I would be worried. Well, first and foremost, thank you all to everybody who's contributed, and I appreciate your financial support of the channel. Can you damage anything, plugging anything or changing anything? The answer is always yes, you can. That's why it's really up to you to decide where you're no longer comfortable or where it no longer makes financial sense or sense with regards to time to continue to pursue this on your own. There comes a point where you take it to a shop. The shop is responsible for the work they do. If they damage your components, they're responsible for replacing those components. However, some shops are more honest than others, right? I think most shops will probably deny that they did anything. But there are honest shops out there, there are honest techs out there, and the idea is that you hopefully find one through a referral, somebody you know, so that you don't have to have that stress. It is highly unlikely that you're going to put a component in that causes another component to fail unless that component is a power supply. So if you take a faulty power supply and plug it into your motherboard, not only can you damage the motherboard, but everything plugged into the motherboard, the RAM, the CPU, the solid state, all of that can be damaged with a bad power supply. Well, it's possible to damage, say, a controller with a bad keyboard. I've seen wired keyboards that a pet has chewed through the cables and shorted them out and caused the entire controller on the motherboard to go. But it didn't cause harm to the CPU or to the hard drive, but the motherboard did need to be replaced, as well as the keyboard, obviously. In the case of a bad CPU causing a motherboard to fail or a bad motherboard causing the CPU to fail, highly unlikely, unless we're dealing with higher voltages. So it's possible, it's just not likely. That being said, it is part of the risk that you take if you choose to undergo this level of diagnostic yourself, and it's one you are choosing to delegate to a professional that you trust to honestly look at that and do the work and accept their responsibility for any damages they cause, if they cause any. This equipment all runs pretty much off 5 volts, 3 volts and 5 volts. Some of it runs off 12 volts, like the EPS connector. So we're not dealing with a lot of voltage here. It's mainly that we're looking for anything obvious. So if somebody brought me a system and that system was shorted out, so there's a big piece of wire running across the motherboard that was left on top of the board, you'll notice I don't just blindly turn on computers. I always open them and visually inspect them before I turn them on. And the reason I do that is I'm looking for anything that's obvious where you go, uh-oh, I better not turn it on like that. If a graphics card were to get sort of knocked halfway out of its socket and I turn the machine on, you could fry the PCI Express port and the graphics card through a short. You could even just plug a graphics card in, leaving your power supply in the on position, and see a nice big blue spark when it happens and kiss your motherboard and your graphics card goodbye. So it's not always just a bad part that can cause another bad part, but the way that you handle the parts and the way you install the parts that are more than likely going to be the cause of any failures. While it is possible for a bad part to cause another bad part, with these low voltages, it's unlikely if you're handling everything correctly and doing everything correctly. And you should know within a matter of a minute of turning the machine on whether or not it's solving your problem. Because if it's not solving your problem, don't just let it run for a half an hour doing nothing. The longer you let it run, the more likely something may go bad after dealing with, you know what I'm saying? Like if it's dealing with it for just a moment, it's less likely to cause a problem than if you just leave it on and let it continue endlessly whatever the problem is, which could lead to a bigger issue. And again, even that's not really likely. In all likelihood, you could probably leave the machine on for an hour. If it doesn't boot, it's probably not going to cause a problem. But what's the point? Why even entertain that thought? Just shut it down and reduce that anxiety and that concern. So those are my thoughts on that. Why am I grabbing this mouse? I need this mouse over here. Sorry. It's going for my Coke. It's way over there. And a couple other contributions just came in. Peter Vigin contributed £5. Thank you, Peter. Harry Scher contributed $2. He wants to know what the best antivirus is. There's no such thing as best in the world of computers. It's like asking me what's the best haircut. You have to decide on your own. Now, me personally, for my clients, I recommend Malwarebytes, the paid version, or I recommend the paid version of MCSoft. What I don't recommend is any free antivirus. There's no free antivirus I recommend. That doesn't mean you can't use it. I just don't recommend it. I don't want to support people that use free stuff. My time will cost you far more money than just buying a good paid antivirus where you don't need to call me. You have to understand the value of time. When the product is free, the product is you. Jesse Kirk contributed $5. He says, thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us. In my humble opinion, you are the best. No, you're the best. Jesse is the best. Jesse's fantastic. Thank you, Jesse. Does anybody know what the cans of Coke are in the background? Those are Coke Classic from 1985. These were brought back because Stranger Things Season 3 did a thing on it. So they brought back the original, not Coke Classic. This is New Coke from 1985. And if you don't know the history of New Coke, it's a storied history of bad marketing and one of the biggest corporate gaffes in American history. So I ordered it to retaste it again because I know how terrible it was in 1985. But I thought, well, maybe it's not as bad as I remembered it. And so I had the opportunity to order it, and I did, and it's disgusting. It's worse than I remember it. It's horrible. Thank goodness they got rid of that crap. So they stand up there as a testament to one of the most powerful companies in the world making one of the dumbest mistakes any corporation could ever make, and hopefully came away learning a lesson on it. There are many documentaries about it, and it really tells a tale about customer loyalty to a product and the history of people growing up with a product. They don't want that product to change. You grew up with something. Many people were upset with George Lucas changing the 1977 Star Wars movie with his special edition. And then, that's not the upsetting part. It's not upsetting that he changed it. It's upsetting that he removed the ability to get the original unaltered 1977 version of the movie on Blu-ray or DVD. Because what he's telling me is, I can't have my memory back. When I was 9 years old and I saw that movie, watching that movie today after George Lucas altered it feels like somebody has taken my memories and manipulated them without my consent and refuses to return them. So I still have my memories, don't get me wrong. But you've got to go online and you've got to find, fans have put together a nice clean 1977 Star Wars back to the original theatrical release. But if George Lucas would stop being so damn stubborn, and I think he signed a deal with Disney that prevents Disney from changing that. I don't know why it's so important to him. If you like the special edition of the movie, great. But don't make us all have to have that. If I want to buy the original version, why won't you take my money and sell it to me? Maybe I'm a Star Wars fanatic and I want every version of every movie. Why don't you sell me it? Make money. So when he altered Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and re-released them, he claims he fixed them, and all he did was steal my childhood memories and refuses to return them. So Coca-Cola had a very similar situation where people grew up with this drink and they changed it, and it affected people emotionally. And it's a fascinating lesson in business And it shows you how even some of the most powerful and most knowledgeable people in the industry were completely clueless to what their product was that they're selling and what it meant to Americans. They know now, and let's hope they don't soon forget. Those cans stand as a reminder. A.R.S. Jeffrey said, Lucas killed Star Wars when he sold it. No, Lucas killed Star Wars after Return of the Jedi. He was turning it into the Muppet Show. It was so bad. George Lucas wants to make movies like Willow and God, George Lucas is a moron. He's a complete moron who stumbled into a successful movie because he had a great editor and great special effects artists that saved his script, saved his movie, and prevented him from making what he wanted to make, which was crap. I am so happy George Lucas sold it to Disney, because Disney's now giving it the treatment it deserves, the respect it deserves. Disney understands what that movie is to fans. George Lucas doesn't care what that movie is to fans. He only cares what it is to himself. He doesn't care if anybody likes it. The fact that it connected with all these people, despite his abilities, it just happened. He doesn't understand it. To this day, George Lucas does not have a clue what the meaning of his movie is. Disney understands it. And Disney's experimenting, and some of the Disney stuff isn't as good as it could be, but I'll tell you what, that Mandalorian TV series, George Lucas would have never done it. The cartoon series, the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, fantastic. Dave Filoni is an amazing producer and director. And, to finally give people an opportunity to explore this huge universe, you had to go to the Star Wars books for that, So as far as I'm concerned, George Lucas is just an idiot. He just accidentally made a great movie and doesn't understand what made his movie great. And so he continues to ruin the movies and say to his fans, here's my middle finger, I don't care if you like it or not, I'm making these movies for children. A lot of children don't like children's movies. A lot of children like adult level movies. A lot of children like to be treated like adults. They don't like to be talked down to. Depends on the age of the child. It depends on the child. You can tell me Star Wars is a kid's movie all day long, but it had enough violence and seriousness and humor in it that as a 9-year-old, I didn't feel like I was watching Teletubbies. You understand what I'm saying? I wasn't watching Power Rangers. I was watching something real, something with real emotion. It wasn't just all sugar-coated. And Disney's doing a little too much sugarcoating. I think Disney needs to be a little more brutal in the movie. But regardless of that, Disney's doing 1,000 times better than George Lucas has ever done, as far as I'm concerned. That's my theory, and I'm sticking with it. I never was happier. Disney's cranking out movies. George Lucas sits on his butt all day counting his money. Can't be bothered. I'd rather see a bad Star Wars movie from Disney than a good Star Wars movie from George Lucas. That's how I feel about that. It's really a shame that Lucas wasn't more of a Spielberg, somebody who could appreciate the quality of his movies from the eyes of his fans. I think James Cameron does that. I think most directors do that. Why George Lucas won't? I think he's just got a pride or an ego issue. He just can't accept the understanding of what makes his... He just doesn't care. He doesn't care why people love Star Wars. He doesn't care. And if it wasn't for his editor, who I think was his wife, and if it wasn't for his special effects guys like John Dykstra, you should see the original script of Star Wars. It's bad. It's bad. Remember the USB dongle. Yes, the USB dongle is in the... remember, I've taken all the spare screws for this computer, and I placed them in this glass. And you'll see the dongle is in there, along with the case screws and the motherboard screws. So that stays right on top of the case. So when it gets time to put this thing back together, I know where everything is. You have your opinion, but Spielberg and Lucas worked a lot together. When Spielberg and Lucas worked together, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, an amazing collaboration. And I have to believe that Spielberg kept Lucas in order. Lucas is also friends with The guy that kind of looks like him. What's his name? Francis Ford Coppola. And Francis Ford Coppola was telling George with The Phantom Menace, he's like, this is a horrible movie. You're over editing it. You're overthinking it. And George is like, all right, thank you for your opinion. And I mean, he's not even listening to his own peers. But I think Spielberg actually had some pull and got through to George. And I think that's why when they collaborated on Raiders and Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade, these movies were all fantastic. The fourth one, I don't know what happened to that. But anyway, they're just theories I have just as a super fan. And what a great team up to bring George Lucas and Spielberg together. I'd love to see Spielberg work with James Cameron or work with Guillermo del Toro. I think that would be absolutely amazing. And Jon Favreau, he was an actor. You've seen him in Iron Man. He has directed Iron Man. He is directing and writing The Mandalorian, or he's written it. Every Mandalorian episode has a different director, which I think is a great idea. And this last episode of The Mandalorian, they have a rebellion fighter. And I can't think of the actress's name, but she's an MMA fighter. And what I liked about it is if you look at, getting off topic here, but if you look at Star Wars, this current series, you have Rey. And Rey's a dainty little girl. You know, Princess Leia's a dainty little girl. It's hard to believe these little girls can kick people's butts. Watching The Mandalorian and seeing this MMA fighter, this woman has arms this big around, and she is a soldier, and she looks like a soldier, and she's believable as a soldier. Kudos to the casting. That is what a soldier should look like. At least one that's good, right? One that's powerful and strong. And what an epic fight between her and the Mandalorian. That was really cool to watch him just, flip him on his head. And look like it was just it looked brutal. It looked real. So I really enjoyed that. If you're not watching The Mandalorian, you're missing a great show. It's, I think, only 7 or 8 episodes long, and we're already halfway through. So it'll be over by Christmas, I think. Great show. And the episodes are varying lengths. It's been around, I think the first episode was an hour. The second and third episode were under 40 minutes, like they were on 32 minutes. And I think this last one, I can't remember the length. They're not running a specific series of time. It seems like they're running as long as it takes to tell a story, not to fill a time. That's genius. Love it. But I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so when something's done well, I get really excited about it. I've been waiting a long time for a good Star Wars television show. They've been promising it since the 80s. The Ewoks wasn't it. The Christmas special definitely wasn't it. The cartoons I thought were going to be stupid, and they got really serious. The Clone Wars, the first couple episodes, I couldn't really get into it, and then it really sort of grabbed me, and then they ended that, and they started Rebels, and I didn't like the way it was drawn. I thought it was a little childish, but again, by third or fourth episode, things started getting real serious. They brought Tom Baker to voice some character, and I'm like, oh, I know that voice, And now they've got this new one called Resistance, new cartoon. I don't like the way it's drawn. I'm having a really hard time getting through episode 1. We're already on season 2. I'm sure if I sit down and force myself to work through at least 3 episodes, it'll probably be something I get addicted to. And I like that The Mandalorian is pulling some characters from those cartoons and putting them in the show, because Disney's not doing that and George Lucas never did it. So I like that. I also like that the cartoons brought in, what's his name? The blue guy. Timothy Zahn writes the best Star Wars books. And he created this character, and in Star Wars Rebels, Grand Admiral Thrawn is the name of the character, sort of this mastermind strategist. They bring him out of the Star Wars books and put him into the Star Wars universe, at least in that cartoon series. And it was so cool because it's arguably that whole series that Timothy Zahn wrote about Thrawn, the best Star Wars books out there. As far as I'm concerned, and I think most people that are big Star Wars fans agree. Great Great entertainment. Really enjoy it. It's a nice little escape. And I just feel like I've waited too long for this stuff. They should have been taking this stuff to the bank 30 years ago. But at least they're doing it now, and Disney's spending some big money on The Mandalorian. I think they spent $150 million to make 7 or 8 episodes. So the sets look great. Werner Herzog is in there. Werner Herzog is a really weird guy. I really like him a lot. He's a very convincing actor. Carl Weathers is in there. When's the last time you saw Action Jackson, you know? Carl Weathers. And he still looks great. I've had some actors from Game of Thrones on there. Guest directors, famous directors. It's a powerhouse. And it's well written. Bad Man, Oh Bad Man has contributed $13.99 Canadian. He says, she was a stormtrooper, though, not a Jedi. Jedi can pull off skinny. Yeah, but she was fighting. You know, she was throwing punches. Still hear you with The Mandalorian. The addition of Baby Yoda is epic in terms of the story. Yeah, it's a really good idea. Jon Favreau is yet to let me down. When he works on projects, you know, I know it's going to be good. Same with Simon Pegg. When Simon Pegg's involved in the project, he's an uber nerd. You know, he likes to keep everything true to form. I know that Quentin Tarantino wanted to make a very violent Star Trek movie. He wanted it to be unlike any other Star Trek. He wanted it to be sort of dirty and gory. And a lot of people in the Star Trek, you know, the Trekkies are absolutely opposed to that. You know, like, keep it the way it is. Keep the spirit of it. And Quentin's like, you know, why? That's boring. Why don't we take it and twist it around and make something completely different? That's Simon Pegg and him kind of were having an online fight about it on Twitter. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, it's just entertainment. It's just something nice little escape from reality every once in a while. And I'm more of a Star Wars guy than a Star Trek guy. I like the grittiness of Star Wars. I like how things don't always work. I like there's all these different languages spoken. I like all the different the realism, like where the engines are on the ships, there are burn marks, or where somebody's wearing armor, it has damage. Everything looks lived in and abused. And in Star Trek, everything is always new and shiny and always works, seems like. So for me, it just loses a little bit of the realism, because that's not probably what it would really be like. Although, in all fairness, it is a military vessel, and a military vessel would always need to be kept up. I also don't like how, and I suppose Star Wars is the same, but I don't like in Star Trek when they're battling somebody and they're face-to-face. Like, you're in space. You don't have to be face-to-face. You can be over here. They can be sideways and twisted and inverted and still be shooting at them and in a fight. There's no up or down. So I don't understand what's this insistence. It must be something directors do so the audience can follow. I don't know. But when you're in space, you have all these different directions and this is sort of what somebody on Gravity would go head-to-head. When you're in space, there's no reason for that. Anyway, sorry, I'm nerding out. Missed a couple of comments here. Let me go back to the chat here. Caleb Barker's contributed $5. He says, enjoy a Coke on me. Hey, thank you, Caleb. Sherry McFarland says, my kids are all grown, but I got Disney Plus just for The Mandalorian. Yeah, about 10 million others did too. My favorite character is Nick Nolte on The Mandalorian. I just love that. I will help you. What if I don't want your help? I have spoken. I have spoken. That's great. I love that. It's good writing. David Bell says, Carrie, just love your show, and I have to say so. Thank you, David. Winston Ang-Lewis contributed $2. Thank you, Winston. Carrie, I bought a few things from your Amazon link for the holidays. Also, is VGA out of date or is HDMI the normal? HDMI is the normal now. And DisplayPort if you're doing high-end video stuff. It looks like a giant contribution came in here. DHR Street Speed has contributed $49.99. He says, I respect your knowledge and love your style. Well, thank you. That is very kind of you to say. And thank you for supporting the channel. As I mentioned, all of the... sorry, I'm being distracted by something. All of the... Wait, hold on. Sorry, guys. I need to correct something in the chat room. Okay. Steven Spencer apparently was made a moderator, did not want to be a moderator, was trying to get my attention to take him off the moderator, and then Shane D., who was a moderator, just timed him out, which Shane should not have done. So I've just removed 2 moderators. I don't want you guys, as moderators, doing anything to any of the viewers unless it's vulgar. I can take care of everything else. So if somebody's being vulgar, then that's a different story. All right, so once again, I can shut this machine down. You can go to start and shut down like everybody else, or we can just hit the power button, just tap it, and you'll see it cycles through the shutdown process. And then when these lights go off on the board and the fan stops spinning, power is off, and then I can turn off that camera 2 input. There we go. I'll move that back down here where it was. Okay. All right, so we'll put everything back to the way it was. And Andy Nicolaus contributed £3. Thank you, Andy. So Steven Spencer, I'm sorry you were timed out. I can't undo that, but it's just for 10 minutes. And then you'll be back. And every once in a while, when somebody's a moderator, for some reason they don't wish to be one, it's something I do so I can recognize you. So if you're somebody who's contributed and shown support to the channel, I often want to make you a moderator so I recognize you. You know, when you have 1,500 people watching, or like right now we've got 667 people watching. Many of you are new and have never been here before. Many of you have been here several times, and I don't recognize you. I don't remember you. So by turning you blue, it doesn't mean you have to do anything. It just means that for me, I know that you've done something that has earned that status where I can trust you. And that if you say something that can be taken a negative way or a positive way, if you're blue, I'm going to assume it's positive. If you're not blue, I often go to the negative, whether that's right or not, because I just don't know people's intent. So that's why I turn people blue. But every once in a while, for whatever reason, somebody doesn't want to be, and no problem. That's not no issue. I just remove you. But I may not remember, you know, if you make a comment about something that can be taken negatively, I may not remember you from even the day before with all the chat and email and all the things I deal with so many people every day, that it could create a bit of, we might have to talk, basically. You could end up getting banned for something that was meant as a joke, but I didn't recognize you and thought, well, you're just a troll. But if you're blue and you do it, then I'll think it's a joke. So if you ask me to take away the blue, you're putting yourself in that position where if I see your name and it's not in blue, I'm probably not going to remember you tomorrow. But it's not punishment. You're not wanting to be blue, that's fine. I just want you to understand why I do it. And the consequences if we remove it means you become another name in a group of hundreds, which I may not recognize if something were to go, you know, if there was a statement that could be taken as disparaging. So anyway, the people in blue have the benefit of the doubt. All right, so that's all that is. You don't have to be blue if you don't want to be blue. Most people are asking for it, and some people who have it don't want it. That's the world we live in. But I appreciate your viewership regardless. Ben Stroud has contributed $2. He says, hey, Kerry, good afternoon. Hey, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Ian McLeod says, I like being a mod. All I have to do is nothing. Exactly. Kerry, this might be an internal video go. So in the chat room, US273 is saying it's possible that perhaps the graphics card that's built onto the CPU is bad. But as I mentioned, the customer who owns this computer has a graphics card. And I asked the customer not to send me the graphics card. So the customer's already tried their graphics card. That's not the issue. And even if it was the issue, it's still a bad CPU that needs to be returned regardless, so it's a pointless exercise. David Martinez says, Kerry, I bought the Easy USB. Love it. Bought it from your link. What's an Easy USB? I don't know what that is. Thank you. Kerry, are you looking forward to Christmas? You know, Christmas, everything gets really busy between Thanksgiving and the first of the year. The streets in Phoenix are crowded. There's a lot of people that come to Phoenix to stay for the winter. They leave their cold home state and come to live in Phoenix for the winter time. They move back to their home state usually in March or April, typically March. So we have an influx of residents into the state. Everybody's shopping, everybody's rude, everybody's in a hurry, and business is always off the charts between Thanksgiving to the first of the year. But a lot of people tell me how their business slows down this time of year. It has never been the case for me. I don't know why. I don't know why for one tech things are slow and for me things are always busy, but it's always busy. And with Windows 7 expiring on January 14th, that's going to add on to that pile that's already a messy pile. I already have 3 builds to do, and we're just into the 3rd day of the month, plus this repair, and more is coming. So for me, am I ready for Christmas? It's a good and a bad thing. It's good to get the business. YouTube revenues pay better in November and December. The advertising rates go up, so it's important for me to make as many videos as possible to generate as much revenue as possible between mid-November and the end of January. But at the same time, that makes me busier than heck. I can't see straight. I got 8 million things going on, and I would like for that to be over as soon as possible, and I would like things to return to normal. All of this because of basically one day. All because of one day, everything's screwed up for 6 weeks. It's weird. But anyway, it's good and it's bad. I like it and I don't like it. I'm always looking forward to it being over. I appreciate the encouragement for the likes. What they're talking about is if you like this content, if you enjoy seeing these repair videos, there's a thumbs up button just below the video, and you can click on that, turn it blue. That lets me know that you enjoy the video. Likewise, if you have not subscribed to the channel, there is a red square rectangular subscribe button, and then there's a little bell next to it. And if you click the bell icon after you subscribe, it'll notify you when I go live. A lot of people will email me constantly, when are you going live, when are you going live? Like if I sat there and answered all those emails, I wouldn't have any time to go live. There's no rhyme or reason to when I go live currently. It's whenever I have the time to do it. I wasn't ready to go live today until I had this problem back here figured out and I knew what I was going to do. And as long as that took, once I was clear and I could move forward with the video, that's when the equipment came on. I also have another build to start. I have another build to finish. That one back over there. Where is it? I can't point. It's over there. That system over there, there it is. That has to be put into a case with a power supply and a DVD drive. And I've got to do the cable management and get that shipped off to that customer so I can start the next one, which is for Mike Smith at the Mike Tech Show. It's going to be a heck of a system. And for that one, just to give you a little teaser, we're going with 64 gigs of RAM, a Samsung 970 Evo Plus, and one of these. This is going to be Mike's new computer, Mike Smith of the Mike Tech Show. This is going to be his new processor. This will be what Mike is using probably for the next 5 or 6 years when he does his, he's doing more video now. He's got a much nicer camera. I'm trying to get a good angle on this. You have to understand everything is backwards in my camera, my view. So it's hard for me to, it's like backing a truck up with a trailer. It takes skill. So there's an i9 9900K on a 20-sided dice that we roll for Dungeons and Dragons to see if my goblin can beat your wizard. I don't know what that's all about. Stupid packaging from Intel. So that's coming up. That's just going to go into a Corsair 200R case. And then I have a couple of builds that are product review builds. That's going to include the Pure Base 500 from Be Quiet, both the windowed and windowless version. We'll compare them side by side. Utilizing Silverstone's new liquid coolers. So I've got a Silverstone 240 millimeter liquid cooler, and we'll be able to showcase this. I'll probably use that G-Skill RGB RAM I've got left over. We'll throw that in there. We'll make this, the windowed case, we'll RGB the heck out of it. It's not going to any customer. It's just a build, and it will probably go to somebody I know who really likes RGB. So I'm not going to keep it. That's just nonsense. And then the non-windowed one will be more of a serious rig without all the RGB stuff. Be more like what I would normally build. Those are coming up, and then I've got another build on top of that. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 builds. Then we got to finish up this repair. I'm waiting to hear back from Intel with regards to replacing that CPU. We know for a fact that CPU is bad now, as I've demonstrated here on the video. Carrie, since you put the old RAM back in, will you system restart now? I've already done that. It's the first thing I did when I put the RAM as I started it. We can turn it back. I mean, if you want me to turn it back on, I will. Here, let's go back to camera 2, and we'll just hit the switch here. See, it's all lighting up over here. And let's see what camera 2 does. Yeah, it's fired right up. No hesitation. Look how fast it's booting into Windows. It's not bad for a Core i5, right? Not bad at all. Looks good to me. Shut that thing back down. Look how fast that shuts down. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, there are several AMD builds on this channel as well. For my money, I prefer Intel, but I'll build whatever my customer wants. The streaming computer that I'm broadcasting to you on now is a Ryzen 7 2700X. I don't like it. My Threadripper, I hate it. I hate that Threadripper. God, what a pain in the ass. What a PETA. Jimmy Walbert says, hey, Kerry, I sent $25 to your PayPal. Hey, thank you, Jimmy. I know some people contributed during yesterday's broadcast on PayPal. I have not sent out the thank yous yet. There's kind of a reason. My office computer that I do all that with is without a brain right now. So after this broadcast, I'm going to put that CPU back. I'm going to put my CPU back in my office PC. And I took the opportunity to blow all the dust and dirt out of it, and it was bad. That's what happens after a year, you know? It's sitting on the floor, it collects it. And then I'll eventually, maybe I'll use that. I'll use one of these new systems I'm building. One will be the new streaming computer. It'll probably be an i9 9700. And then I think the i9 9900KS will be my office computer. Or the other way around. I haven't made up my mind. But I'm going to go 2 high-end systems. To heck with it. And I still have the Xenos build to do. I'm still waiting for John Xenos to get back to me with an adapter I need. And then maybe I'll put a 9900 in that too, because I mean it's an amazingly beautiful case. If you've never seen the Xenos G3, it's a beautiful case. And I'm afraid the parts I bought for it are already going to be obsolete, not good enough by the time I get those parts. And I'll just use them in something else and cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And then I will probably have some systems for sale here at the beginning of the year. I know I've got a Ryzen 5 that's brand new and it's never been used. I'll have the Ryzen 7, that's the old streamer, the 2700X I can sell. And I'll have 2 more Intel systems, like maybe some 9700Ks. Maybe. So stick around. You might see some exciting stuff coming up here, because I can't just bury myself in these computers. And I still have that Intel NUC i7, which is a beautiful little machine and don't have a purpose for it. Then I have my other little streamer that's built in the mini case. I haven't turned that on in months. So I got to do something with the stuff I'm not using. It needs to be sold, or it needs to find a purpose. Basically, find a purpose or get it out of here, because it's getting to be too much. Vern Mahorny says, I'm installing an SSD. It's a 1 terabyte and asking about partitions, MBR or GPT. GPT is the new way of things. MBR is old school, so I would go GPT. Have you tested AMD for an extended period? Yes. The streaming computer has been in place now for, it's been about a year. And it was really off to a rough start. Audio and video weren't syncing regularly in OBS. And I don't know what fixed it. I don't know if an OBS update fixed it. I know there were several BIOS updates to this AMD board that I'm using. I know that there were several chipset updates from AMD that I wasn't aware of or even available, because there's no auto tool to make me aware of when new updates are available for the chipset. I get it in my head to go look, and I'm like, oh, there's a new one. It's something I don't worry about with Intel. All Intel users can download the free Intel driver update utility, and it will sit in your system tray and it'll let you know anything that's Intel on your system. If it has an updated driver, it'll tell you whether it's your SATA controller driver, your NVMe driver, your Ethernet controller if it's made by Intel, your video card if it's built on the GPU is Intel, and it'll just tell you, hey, you got a new update. And it's amazing how these updates can help, especially when there's been a Windows update. People are, oh, I had a problem with Windows Update. Well, that's because you never updated your chipset driver. You may be running an old Intel RST driver, and if you don't update it, Windows won't install. And and you're sitting there thinking, what's wrong with Windows? It's you. So there's no excuse for that on Intel. If you download the free Intel driver update utility, it'll sit in your system tray, and it'll let you know. AMD doesn't offer such a thing. Not that if there's something out there for AMD, please tell me, because that's the thing that's driving me crazy. And that's the reason I want to get rid of AMD. Just tired of it. I'm tired of how much time I have to invest to keep the system up to date by manually going and looking, and have to put it on my calendar or somehow remind myself to manually go and look and compare what it is available to what it is I have. And in Intel, it all happens automatically. So anyway, that's my vent with AMD. Thomas has contributed $5. He says, on a scale from Star Wars to flavored Coke, how would you rate the AMD Prism cooler? So I'm running the AMD Prism cooler on the 2700X that I'm streaming on, and it's too loud. It's pretty, but it's too loud. Oftentimes in my streams, you can hear that fan on the streaming computer crank up. Normally, like if this was Intel, I'd be replacing that with a Mugen 5. And if I intended to keep this 2700X as my streamer, I would take that cooler off, the Prism cooler, and replace it with a Mugen 5. It's quieter. I don't need pretty. I need quiet, and I need reliability, and I need simple. I don't want to search for updates every week to see if there's some patch that might fix a problem I'm having. So Intel solves all of that for me. I don't use the Intel coolers anyway, so the fact that I'm even using the AMD cooler, if that was an equivalent Intel i7, I would not be using the stock cooler. So on the one hand, good for AMD that I'm using their cooler, but I'm probably using it for the wrong reason, which is the pretty lights. because it looks cool. But on my Corsair 200R, which you can't really see it, it's kind of hard to, you can kind of see through the fan holes on the side panel, and you can see the colors rotating around. I also don't like that you can't rotate the AMD logo goes upside down, which is really stupid for AMD to have designed it that way. Intel does the same thing, in all fairness. Just give me the sticker and let me put it on, or make it so I can rotate that centerpiece. It just bothers my OCD. Even though I can't, I just got done telling you I can't really see through it besides the holes in the case. I just wish the darn logo would be right side up, or give me the ability to turn it. And you can't do that, certainly without doing some hacking to make it the right direction. So that disappoints me with AMD. The cooler's adequate. It's not good, but it's pretty. You know, to have that edge light, it's a very thin light. It's not too gaudy, but it's completely unnecessary. And it's too loud for streaming. That's why I'm going to get rid of it. Well, if it wasn't for me having to look for updates all the time, I'd throw a Mugen 5 on it. I would solve the noise issue. Intel's micro-architectural flaws are making me sad. AMD's architectural flaws are making me sad. AMD's cores aren't hitting their speeds. Their Ryzen software tells you which core is the fastest core. Doesn't align with Windows telling you which core. Why does AMD tell you this core is faster and Windows tells you this core is faster? And AMD went on this whole thing about, well, we interpret it differently than Microsoft. So in other words, you just wanted to create confusion and invent your own rules. Well, we meant that this one's better for overclocking. Oh, give me a break. It's not like you can overclock individual cores. You're not going to go into your BIOS and go, give me this core at this speed. I mean, I suppose if you're really into it, you could get down to that sort of minutia, but it's absolutely, it's just dumb. So now AMD has admitted fault here, and they're rewriting the Ryzen master software. We're not rewriting it, but they're correcting it, so it will now give you the same information that you get from Windows on which processor is, or which core is the best core. And then, you know, like I said, they weren't hitting their clock speeds. They had some RAM incompatibility issues that required a bunch of Windows Update issues. Single core performance on AMDs is just horrible compared to single core performance on Intel. So look, you want to see this however you want to see it, right? You want to praise AMD, see the underdog, and they can do no wrong. That's fine. Both companies are good, and both companies have flaws. Neither company is superior to the other one, except in sales, where Intel spanks AMD all day long. However, in all fairness, Intel's a bigger company. Intel having competition is good. It's bringing prices down. It's forcing Intel to work harder. I have nothing against AMD. I love AMD. What I don't like is closed-mindedness, that one company is evil and one company is nothing but the angel. They both have good and bad to them, and I would just like to see a little more level-headedness when people come forward and say, look, AMD's great at this, but in the same side, you can also say a compliment to Intel or a negative thing to AMD, so you don't seem so flat and one-sided and brainwashed. It's so frustrating to me. There's no perfect product. No company makes a perfect product. There's pros and cons, price and value, performance, installation process, warranty, reliability, endurance. All of that makes up a product. It's not just, it's not so simple. And to suggest it is really just comes across as being uninformed and brainwashed. To me, that's how it comes across to me. Like when I hear somebody say something all one-sided, I go, they don't, that poor soul, they don't even have any idea how brainwashed they are. What is your most powerful personal PC? I built the Nuka-Cola with the 8086K, but it's sitting on my office. I haven't put it into use yet. And then I've got the Threadripper, what is it, a 1950X, I think is what it is. I can't stand it. It's junk. It's absolute junk. It's loud. It's finicky. It requires special drivers. It just really drives me crazy. So that may be the most powerful rig I've got, but I don't know if it's a personal computer. It's more like an ornament on my shelf that isn't plugged in and rarely gets turned on. And I need to do something about that because it's a beautiful case, and there's 3 Samsung 970 500 gig drives, you know, M.2 NVMe drives in it. And the problem with the Threadripper is your choice of coolers is so limited, and it's so loud, and it's so finicky. It's like owning a Ferrari. It's nothing but headaches, money and headaches. It's just a money pit. But regardless of that, it's not a matter of how much power you've got. There seems to be this focus on power without any real discussion of what you're using that power for. I see a lot of powerful cars, a lot of 400, 500, 600 horsepower Mustangs and Dodge Challengers and Camaros. And they're just driving like normal people. They're not squealing their tires at a green light. They're not driving 150 miles an hour down the freeway. They could, but they're not. So why do you have it? I'm not suggesting it's a good idea to be dangerous with your car. I am suggesting that buying a better rig doesn't make you a better user. Buying a better gaming computer doesn't make you a better gamer. Buying nicer pots and pans does not make you a better chef. So I'm not impressed with it. When somebody actually needs the power, let's talk. But when somebody's just out just to get the most amount of power because I can, you got more time and money than I do. Jay Fernara says, my comment was not one-sided. Your comment was not full disclosure. You have decided to pick one thing that's factual and to ignore all the other unrelated information that is also factual, that is not in AMD's benefit or favor. And you've also selected not to highlight any fact that is beneficial or positive towards Intel. So yes, technically you're being factual with what you select to be your facts, and you're ignoring everything else around it as though it doesn't exist. So your failure to acknowledge all the other corresponding information that may be negative to AMD or positive to Intel, you are omitting with purpose. And it's giving people who don't know the difference the impression that one product is superior to the other, which it isn't, because what you prioritize isn't necessarily what I prioritize. The world doesn't think like you. And it's very disrespectful to assume that because you think one way, everybody has the same priority, everybody has the same need, everybody has the same budget, everybody has the same expectation. That's narcissistic beyond belief. Show a little full disclosure, is all I'm suggesting, to be level-headed. So if you want to give a compliment to one thing, then you can also kind of ding it a little bit by saying, well, it's true, but also keep in mind this. Or if you want to compliment it, it wouldn't hurt to compliment the other side as well in a different subject matter and say, well, single core performance in AMD is worse than single core performance in Intel, period, end of story. Okay, but AMD is also cheaper. Okay, but Intel, you can go back and forth with this all day long. There's no right or wrong answer here. And selecting a single fact while ignoring all the other facts because it suits your agenda is very one-sided and narcissistic, and it upsets me that you think you're emboldened because technically what you stated was a fact, but you selected that fact, you ignored all the other ones, and in ignoring them and by not volunteering them, it gives the impression that that's the only information available, and that is full and complete. It is not full disclosure. You're welcome to think anything you want to. You're welcome to embrace AMD. You're welcome to embrace Intel. It doesn't matter to me. But when you're brainwashing others with incomplete information, I have a problem with that. Super Marula has contributed $5. Kerry, did you hear or get in on the AMD class action lawsuits? I've heard of them. What are you going to get, $5? It doesn't. These class actions, the only people making any money are the attorneys. I really don't get involved in it. Bird Mahoney says, I'm using Acronis to partition the new drive. Love it. Don't know why you do that, but okay. I mean, Windows will partition it for you automatically, but there's always more than one way to do it, and whatever way you like, as long as it gets the job done. Marty has contributed $2. Hey, Marty, thank you for that. Thomas contributed, $5 did that one already. Yeah, you know somebody's one-sided in their thought when they allow themselves to lose their moderator status and be banned before they accept what I'm telling them, and they continue to dig deeper and to stand their ground. That's all. When somebody's willing to do that, that's how brainwashed they are. So it's no wonder they're trying to brainwash other people. They don't even realize how brainwashed they are, to a point of losing mod status and being kicked out of the channel. There's something wrong with you to have that sort of a loyalty to any product, because that product doesn't have that same loyalty to you. I promise you AMD isn't going to stand up for you. That's ridiculous. Anyway, there is no superior product. When it comes to AMD or Intel, it's like arguing about Ford or Chevy. It's like arguing about Nissan versus Toyota. It is a pointless argument. The only thing that's important is that you buy the product that suits your needs. And under no circumstance should you ever assume that other people's needs match yours. Hey, you like your Toyota Camry? Great for you. I'll never own one. Okay? I will never own a Toyota Camry. Never, ever. Does that mean it's a bad car? No. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. I think I'd rather walk than own a Toyota Camry. But I'm not going to tell you not to buy one. If you like a Toyota Camry, that's great for you. I'll enjoy being your passenger in it. I won't own one. That's just a numb, lifeless, soulless car. Don't like it. It's not my thing. Doesn't make it bad, doesn't make it evil, doesn't make what I buy better, right? So everybody's entitled to like what they like, and if it's important for people to agree with you, you need some work on your self-esteem, because if you truly believe what you're saying, whether or not other people agree with you is not important. And you should be able to not take it personally. You should be able to say, hey, look, we all love computers, and I'm glad that you like this and I like that. And isn't it great that we share this passion for computers, instead of, if you don't think like me, then I don't like you. But there are some basic rules where it comes to an attempt to manipulate people. And so when there's a lack of acceptance for other people's needs or expectations or budgets, and that you only see life one way, this is always superior, this is always better, you're welcome to do that on your time and your place. But to stand on my stage and to shout it out to my audience, that's not why I'm here. I'm not here for you to jump on my stage. You can create your own stage and do that. I won't stop you. You have every right to do it. It's profoundly offensive. It's so offensive. So, and to come from a moderator of all people, somebody I trusted, that hurts. I expect my moderators to be supportive. So when people start behaving that way, obviously made a mistake and misjudged by making that person a moderator. It saddens me, because I want everybody to be mods. I want everybody to be kind and supportive to one another. But that person wants everybody to think AMD is superior in all ways and forms and shapes, and everything else is, yeah. That really upset me. All right, Bill Huglini contributed $5. Did I miss the bad CPU? Bill, this is a live video. You can rewind it just like a regular old video. Right now, you can grab the mouse, go to the bottom of the video, and drag that bar to the left, and you can see everything you've missed. Of course, when this video was been processed and is made public after the live event ends, obviously you'll be able to do that just like any other video, right? You can rewind it and fast forward it. Can't fast forward this as I'm making it because I haven't made it yet. But once it's made, you can rewind and fast forward, and right now, rewind is enabled. They call it DVR mode. So you don't have to ask what you missed. You just go in there and rewind it back and see for yourself. One of the best features on YouTube they ever added. Did you get a new camera, or is it just me? I'm learning how to adjust the camera properly, so the picture quality is much better now. It's been hard to balance building and repairing computers and dealing with customers, and then sitting down and finding time to look through the camera menuing system. And when I set the camera up, as the day changes, as you know, afternoon becomes night and the lighting in this room changes, the camera settings need to change. So it's not like I can just set it once and walk away from it. But it's important to know which settings are having the effect, and it's been a struggle of mine to find the settings that are making the difference, and I think I've figured that out. Next, I want to tune the audio. Since I upgraded the microphone, the audio's not as good as I want it to be. So when I have some more time, I have to put some headphones on and adjust some settings, and at least that's a set it and forget it situation. The audio won't change unless I change microphone packs or mics again. But I haven't adjusted it or tuned it for this microphone. I haven't had time. That's why the whole camera stuff and broadcasting is like a whole nother career with a whole other skill set than what I'm filming. Do you need a certificate or degree to be an IT technician? You need whatever who's ever hiring requires you to have. That's what you need. If they just will hire anybody for $10 an hour and you're willing to take $10 an hour and they'll teach you what they want you to know, some employers are like that. Some employers may require degrees. If you want to start your own business, start your own business. There's nothing required other than ambition. Gary Tatum has contributed $5. He says, thanks for the USB performance tip the other day. Always learning here. Great. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, you know, that was something I meant to cover last year, back when 1809 was released. And I just got sidetracked, and it wasn't until I was reviewing that pluggable Thunderbolt 3 1 terabyte external SSD, and I saw those poor performance write numbers, and I was like, oh, I've been meaning to talk about this. So I'm glad it happened, even if it happened 12 months after I wanted it to. We got there. Carrie, do you watch the DC Universe shows? No, I just don't like DC. I'm a Marvel guy. The Batman movies by Christopher Nolan are an exception. The camera focus is a lot better. So there was a firmware update that dealt with the multi-point focus. I mentioned it, I think, last week or the week before. I did a firmware update on this camera. The only reason I knew there was a firmware update for it was I purchased the camera from B&H Photo, and B&H Photo sent me an email saying the camera you purchased has a firmware update. And I went, oh. So then I went to Canon's website, and I was 2 firmware versions behind. And it's not like a motherboard update. It's not like a BIOS update. This is nerve-wracking because you're not sure. It's like, is this taking too long? Is it going to brick my camera when I'm done? Is it worth it? But it looks like it was worth it. It addressed some focusing issues, multi-point focus improvements, and that may be what you're seeing is because of the firmware update. Carrie, do you ever drink Pepsi? If I'm out at a restaurant, I'll ask for a Coke or a Pepsi, whatever they have is fine. If I know ahead of time a restaurant doesn't have Coke, I might think twice about it. There are times when I don't care, but most of the time I do care. The Arby's next to me used to have RC Cola. And then they went to Coca-Cola, and I said, oh, you guys switched your Coca-Cola now. And she's like, all I've been hearing is people complain. I'm like, who complains you have Coca-Cola? She goes, they're not complaining that we have Coca-Cola. They're complaining that we no longer have Mountain Dew. And I went, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's a Pepsi product. And Mountain Dew people are very typically, Subaru Mike is one of those Mountain Dew guys. He loves his Mountain Dew. A lot of coders like Mountain Dew. It's a highly caffeinated, uniquely flavored caffeine, highly caffeinated soda. I like Mountain Dew on occasion. It's not my favorite. How about Dr. Pepper? No, I don't like Dr. Pepper. The Colorado dog shirt was cool. Those shirts are from a website called crazyshirts.com. They're out of Hawaii. And this is a crazy shirt. This says it's a Krabby Jake's. I bought this shirt in San Francisco like 8 years ago, and it's old and faded. And I used to have this German Shepherd, and in my old videos, you'll see Jake. And Jake we had an amazing bond, he and I. We had a connection that was unlike any other connection I've had with any other living creature on the planet, let alone an animal. So when I saw Krabby Jake's, and it was at Fisherman's Wharf, and it's not a real place, it's just a funny little name they make up, I was like, I gotta have that shirt. And I wrote to the company because it's all faded, it's getting holes, and I want another one, and they don't make it anymore. And I wish I had bought two. So the other thing I don't like about these shirts is if I'm eating something and I drip, it'll stain the shirt. Almost anything will stain these shirts. You'll see little dark spots. So I need to throw away those shirts because they're stained. We could be eating pizza and a little sauce, boom, that's it, shirt's ruined. Eating a chicken wing, a little sauce, shirts will forever be stained. But they're so comfortable. They're very well made, but they're expensive. They're like $40 a shirt, $35, $40 a shirt for a t-shirt. And then they charge you for shipping on top of that because it's coming from Hawaii. So I end up wearing them for a very long time until I have to be thrown away. So during the Black Friday special, I bought 9 new ones, some of the exact same shirts I've got, but they're not faded or stained. It's a stupid reason to replace a perfectly good shirt. But I'm so picky about the comfort of the materials that I wear. And I like the little logo in the corner and a big logo on the back. It's a very 1980s thing, and they're very hard to find nowadays. It's not a style people have anymore. So those will be coming. I just hate how easily these stain. I have to be very careful when I wear them because they're expensive. If they were $10 or $15 shirts, I wouldn't care. But some of my button-down shirts don't cost as much as these do. So if you know a site that's got these cool little logos in the corner and a big logo in the back, let me know. I'm always looking for that kind of design. It's just the way it all was in the 80s. Luke Coleman has contributed 10 pounds. He says, hey, Kerry, I've been watching your videos for a long time, and you've inspired me to start my own PC business, but I'm having trouble advertising my computers. Do you have any advice? So getting people to know your business exists is the problem every business faces, whether you're a restaurant, a plumber, whatever you're doing, getting people to know you exist is the hardest part. It's not fixing the computer. A lot of people are like, I enjoy fixing computers, so I'll do this for a living because I have the skill. But what you don't have the skill in is in marketing and establishing business. And there's nothing to fix until you establish some form of marketing. So the best advice I can give you, first of all, there's no one answer. It's very cultural and it varies from area to area. You'll hear a lot of excuses in the business. People say, well, I live in a big city, there's a lot of competition. I live in a little city and there's no customers. Whatever it is, you can't fall into that trap. You won't be a good business person. There's a great website that has, excuse me, that has the resources that you're looking for. It's called Tech Nibble. I'm going to give you 2 sites. TechNibble, TechNibble. That's run by Bruce Whitty out of Australia. And I interviewed Bruce. I met him in person. Bryce Whitty. Interviewed Bryce, and super nice guy, very good advice. TechNibble.com. The second one would be the Computer Business Marketing Podcast. Look up Matthew Rodella, Rodela. Matthew, I also interviewed Matthew. If you look up those names on my YouTube channel, look up Matthew Rodella and look up Bryce Whitty, Whitty, you'll see my interviews with them. And those interviews were a couple of years ago, but they're both still going strong and are even more knowledgeable today than they were back then, and specialize in computer business marketing and varying techniques that you can use to get some business. Thank you for the contribution. It was an excellent question. It's something we talk a lot on Tech Vets. If you don't listen to the Tech Vets podcast, you might want to check that out. Tech-vets.com. Mike Smith and I, from time to time, will talk about marketing, but it's all about the trials and tribulations involved in running your own computer repair business, from contracts and billing, to marketing and when to drop a customer or how to find new customers. Just the regular, everyday, in the trenches stuff Mike and I deal with. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Podnuts. There's Podnuts Daily and Podnuts Pro, and they talk to computer business owners. And again, some of that discussion includes marketing, and all of this information is free. And Bryce Whitty over at TechNibble, they have a computer business kit you can buy for like $100 or $150, I think. And it's got all the documentation already done for you, invoices, contracts, and you just have to modify it slightly to meet your legal laws, or perhaps there's certain things you want to change to make it yours, but at least you're not starting from scratch. You can take something that's already existing and modify it. Very inexpensive. But that's more for running the business, not so much in marketing materials. Gary says, I did IT for a living for a while and found it turned something I loved into just another job. Well, this is true of anything. You might like playing baseball, so you decide to sign up. Maybe you go down to the park and you play baseball with guys at the park, right? Then you decide to join a team, and now you're expected to be there, or they won't have enough players and will have to forfeit, and you've got to be there at this time on this day, and there's this pressure, and it turns something enjoyable into a job and a responsibility, and it kind of takes the spontaneity and the fun out of it. And that can happen with anything in life. You enjoy cooking, so you go work as a cook, and you'll start to hate cooking, because you're not doing it when you want to, and you're not doing what you want to. You're doing what you have to and what you're being told to. It's like being an artist, and you want to draw, and a company says, we want you to paint a Campbell's soup can. Or it's like being an author, and you want to write a story, but instead publishers come up to you and say, we want you to write a book about this. It just kind of feels like a job. Now you're not getting to make all the decisions. It's like being a programmer. You like to code, but somebody says, I want you to code this. It kind of takes the fun out of it, especially when you know there's a better way to do it and they don't want to hear it. They're like, we're paying you to write it the way we want you to write it. It kind of takes away your creativeness and your imagination to not do it the way you want to do it as an artist. It's like being a musician and being told what to play instead of playing it your way. That's why it's a job, right? That's how we differentiate getting paid to do something versus having fun doing something. And when you can have fun and get paid, that's the secret. Find a way to keep it fun. problem is that somebody always knows someone who will do it practically for free. No, that's not the case. So when you're dealing with consumers, that may be the problem, yeah. But when you're dealing with businesses, not so much. When businesses have employees that are being paid and customers that are having to wait, they will hire a professional because they're losing too much money to go on the free or cheap side. So yeah, if you're aiming your business in the consumer, it's very wishy-washy and fickle. If you're aiming your business at other businesses, you can make a lot of money, get a lot of work, and of course it does take some of the fun out of it because it's very serious. Money's at stake. They're paying you to save money. And if they're paying you and it's costing them money, in other words, you're taking too long to get jobs done, you're not getting it done right, it's costing them more downtime, more loss in productivity, then you're going to lose that client. You don't really have that pressure on the consumer side. Consumers, they can take it or leave it. Businesses, they got to have it up and running now. What was the average loss, the business? Every business, there was an average corporate downtime costing an average of $8,500 an hour. So it could put a lot of pressure on the tech. And with all the ransomware going around affecting all the municipalities, the school systems, there's no shortage of a need for knowledgeable techs, and you could make a lot of money. But fighting off ransomware and stuff like that it's typically not very fun. But you might be somebody who finds it fun. So it depends which avenue you're looking for. You're not going to expect the kind of business from consumers that you're going to get from businesses. And you can't expect the same expectations with regards to the amount of money you can make or what's acceptable, what's good enough. What's good enough for a consumer is completely different than a business. Businesses have too much money to lose. Mark Weiss says, you're paying me to take care of your network, so allow me to do my job or go fly a kite. Yeah, sometimes you run into those clients that will tell you how to do your job when it comes to that. And one of the great things about being self-employed is you can turn away jobs. When I have clients that will not take my advice, and then as a result of that, start calling me more and more for problems that were completely avoidable, now it's costing me money instead of them money. Like they're inconvenienced that they have to call me, but I'm the one that has to go out and fix it under the retainer. So at a certain point, I have to say, look, you're costing me too much money. I can't continue to let you monopolize me. I have other clients. If you're going to monopolize me, then I basically work for you and I'm back to not being self-employed again. So we're clearly not a good fit. I have other clients that go, we'll do whatever you tell us to do. And I never take advantage of that. I never suggest anything over the top or experimental. I always recommend middle of the road. This is what you need. This will get it done. I have one client that just looks at the price and he says, are you sure? Are you sure? Because if there's something better, I want it. And I'm like, yeah, there's something better, but it won't make any difference to you. You'll just be spending more money. The end result to you will still be the same because you don't need all these extra bells, whistles, and features. If you want it, we'll put it in, but why would we go for overkill when it's not necessary? This is what you need. Anything less wouldn't be enough, and anything more would just be spending more with no real benefit. The customer's like, I like your honesty, but if there's ever anything more, let me know. And I'm like, of course. I would never do anything other than that. It's in my benefit for you to have the best hardware for your needs, so you're not calling me all the time. And the fact that you're not calling me all the time should make you real happy with the service I'm providing. In the business, you often get the client who says, everything is always breaking. What are we paying you for? Or nothing ever breaks. What are we paying you for? So enjoy being self-employed in this business. It does require some finesse in customer relations for them to understand what it is you're doing. And not everybody's going to see a value in it. And don't try to convince them of their value. It's a waste of time. To be like, hey, you don't see my value? That's fine. I hope you find somebody else who you see value in. And if you don't, my door's always open. You're always welcome to come back again. So either way, as far as I'm concerned, I win. Either I get them back over time and they now see my value, or I never get them back and they're no longer a pain in my butt and they're happy with somebody else. Great. I win either way because it's no stress on me, whichever way the customer goes. Do you know which day you're going to do the next build live? I'm hoping to finish the build of that machine back over there. I'm hoping to finish that tomorrow. And then I'll have to do the cable management and everything, and then I'll try and get it out of here by Friday, get it shipped out. And maybe Friday, I can start Mike Smith's build. I think his is the one I'll do next because he's the next one who really needs it. And I'm still waiting for parts to come in for the build after that. And I still have to go, I'm hoping I should have an email waiting for me from Intel with an RMA number to send this CPU back, get that process started. These parts will go in the back until that new CPU arrives, and we'll revisit that, do that repair. Then this will get put back in its old case and shipped back to the client. Then 2 more builds after that. So I'm thinking those are the events. And then whatever repairs come in between now and then, who's to say? It's a lot to get done on top of the NVMe drive comparison I plan on doing. I got to find some time for that, and I hope to do all of this before Christmas Day. So my plate is very, very full right now. I'm certainly not bored, and you should be seeing a lot of content here on the channel, regardless of what that content is, between now and Christmas. If I miss a day, I'm missing higher advertising rates that YouTube's charging. It's costing me money. So I intend to make videos every single day that it's possible for me to make them with a high priority to, if I make the same video in January, it won't generate the same revenue as if I make the video now. So that's my pressure. Do it all, right? Don't sleep. Just keep making videos until it's done. And I'm tempted. I am tempted. And it may come to that if I get pushed far behind. Thomas has contributed $5. He says, how do you handle something like a Spectre meltdown situation from a support standpoint? Do you get hounded with calls when news like this hits? I've never seen a customer ever affected by Spectre or meltdown. The exploit has been available for more than 20 years. And as far as I know, it's never actually occurred to anybody ever. Customers rarely will call me because news like this comes out every day, and most of my customers don't really understand what it means anyway. They know I'm taking care of them, and they trust me to do that so that they don't have to know and they don't have to ask. If somebody were to call and ask me about it, I'd simply tell them it's nothing to worry about. There's no reason to have any anxiety. Maintain your Windows updates, make sure you've got Windows 10 and it's being updated, and you really don't have to do anything else. It'll take care of itself. There's a real issue with anxiety and mental illness happening around the planet right now. There's a lot of just a very interesting cultural shift in the right versus the left. No more compromise. Everything's narcissistic. Everything's, let me take a picture of me, put it on Instagram. Let me take a picture every 5 seconds. Let me stay connected to the net with my head down and my face in my phone and stay away from reality. There's this very strange shift in the way people are thinking. And I'm doing my best to find a balance in it. And so when people are contacting me, which very rarely happens, about something they saw in the news or read online about some fear, regardless of what that fear is, it is almost always unjustifiable and unreasonable. No differently than Y2K 19 years ago. It was a whole lot of fear and anxiety over nothing. So if we haven't learned by then, I don't know what else to say. People just seem to like to be scared. They like to be frightened. They like to have their anxiety. This is not the way people behaved 30 years ago. And it is a cultural shift in society. People just like to be scared. And scaring people makes money. The news media, news used to be a public service, and now it's a for-profit thing. And so what generates more profit than fear? So, well, the dogs are letting me know they're hungry. So I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in. A shout out once again to all the contributors during today's broadcast, and that includes Thomas, David R. Register, Thomas Robinson, Luke Coleman, Andy Nicolau twice. Thank you, Andy. Gary Tatum and Bill Haglini. Madi Yoel contributed a couple of times today. Thank you, Madi. Super Marula, Thomas again. Mike Dane, who says, have a Coke and a Christmas cookie on a Dane. Thank you, Mike. Madi again. Darren Cluth, I missed that one, Darren. Thank you. John Yasuda, I missed his as well. John says, great diagnosis, Carrie. Coke and pizza time on me. Keep up the great work. Hey, thank you, John. Thank you so much. Brad Henderson contributed $10. Winston Ang Liu says Happy Hanukkah and contributed $5 Canadian. Ben Stroud and Andy Nicolau again. DHR Street Speed with that wonderful $49.99 contribution. Very generous of you. Thank you so much. Caleb Barker and Badman Oh Badman. Winston Ang Liu again. David R. Register. Jen D has contributed $2 Canadian and said, love my laptop upgrades. Thanks for the encouragement. You got it, Jen. Nothing beats, the experience of having done it, that accomplishment and fulfillment that comes with that. I'm so glad that you took it on, and you can see how addictive it is, right? Peter Vigian and Harry Schuer, as well as Jesse Kirk, Tony Wallow, the Gandalf, Alan Maybrier, Tom Jackson, Rudiger Luthi, Ramsey El Morardi, Josh McLeod, and the first contribution today from Randall Hill. Thanks to all you guys for your support, your kindness, and your generosity. I appreciate it very much. To all the viewers, thanks for watching. I will see you all again, ideally at some point tomorrow, and we'll get a system finished. And I'll keep you up to date on the CPU RMA. It'll be a first time having to RMA a CPU to Intel. I expect it to be similar to other RMA experiences, but maybe I'll be in for a surprise. I don't know. I'll keep you up to date. Lyle was very thirsty. I'll see y'all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.